Welcome back. This is part two of the flipped classroom video that I've been trying to do. I was unable to get section 3 in, so we will be starting with section 3 right now, which is titled Social Change. The objectives we have here, by the time you finish this section, you should be able to identify and describe the main sources of social change, and you should be able to describe the factors that lead people to resist social change. There are several sources. These are the main sources. Values and beliefs. They are affected by the ideology spread through social movements. And so our values and beliefs change over time. If we start with the women's movement, you had the thought that women should not be allowed to vote in the beginning of this country's time frame up until 1919 when women's suffrage was actually approved. And so the values and beliefs through a social movement considered by the society at the time in 1919 that women actually should be allowed to vote. You have the civil rights movement of the 60s, giving more rights and freedoms to African Americans and other minorities. Technology can be defined as knowledge and tools people use to manipulate their environment. We can look at, again, starting early in this country, how people build their houses and how they made a living. And using modern technology, we have been able to manipulate the environment where if you were cold, you put on a jacket. We now have furnaces that will provide heat, not only burning wood, but burning oil or natural gas. We also have in the South a very warm climate, and one way to stay cool is the use of air conditioning and coming standard in all homes. Same thing with that. Looking at cars these days. If you buy a modern car these days, you more than likely will have some aspect of modern technology, of a Bluetooth connection of some sort, so that you can use your phone, hands-free devices, stuff like that. And so we've been able to manipulate our environment, bringing about social change. Population. Changes in the size of population may bring about changes in the culture. As the Chinese population and India's population has increased, the two countries together make up about 3 billion of the 7 billion people found in the world. The changes that come to those cultures also have an impact that can be both positive and negative. You have a wide variety of people available for different jobs that have been outsourced to those countries from other countries, which is positive for them, but negative for the countries that these jobs came from. It changes the culture in a sense that you have Western culture, the United States culture, coming into these areas and changing the way people live, as well as the languages they speak and products that they would also use. Diffusion, the process of spreading cultural traits from one society to another. I've mentioned the example before in Chapter 2. We talked about Marco Polo coming from China, or coming back from China, bringing with him the noodle, which we now tend to associate pasta with the Italians, but originally it came out of China. Another idea of spreading of cultural traits from one society to another is rap music, starting here in the United States, and now you have this phenomenon, most downloaded or most viewed videos of a guy dancing from South Korea, and it's kind of hip-hop rap music that he's doing it to. The physical environment. The environment may provide conditions that encourage or discourage cultural change. We take Ellington, for example. We had farmland for a long time. All the land that was wide open was used for farming, and it discouraged people from wanting to kind of come and move to the town because there wasn't availability of houses. Now that the farmers are selling off their property, what it is doing is encouraging cultural change, because it's not just the farmers that are living here in town, but you've got people who were city people who've now moved to the suburbs or to these more rural areas, and the rural areas becoming more and more like the suburbs as we bring in more modern stores. Instead of having Ellington Supermarket, we now have Big Y, which is part of a chain of grocery stores. You've got a McDonald's, you've got Subway, things like that, where the physical environment can encourage or discourage some aspect of cultural change. Wars and conquest. They're not common, but bring about the greatest amount of change in the least amount of time. And if we were to take a look at what happened in Israel and Palestine, that you've got a battle that went on for about 8 days, and the Palestinians received the brunt of the damage, upwards of $1 billion worth of damage in just 8 days worth of time, based upon the missiles that the Israelis were able to fire into the Palestinian Gaza area. So again, wars and conquest, they're not common, but they do bring about the greatest amount of change for the least amount of time. The leading factors to resisting social change would be ethnocentrism. So we see ourselves as being superior, our culture is superior, and therefore we don't need to have any outside influences coming in because we're already superior. This can lead to an aspect of segregation. We have this idea of cultural lag, a delay in a cultural change such as the introduction and use of computers. There are some areas, even today, that do not have the same type of computer technology that we have. Even here in the United States, there are some areas where the community might not be as well off as we are in Ellington, and therefore do not have the type of computers or type of internet service that we have, which is available to us. Doesn't mean that they're not going to get it, it's just that they are far behind. We kind of laugh and make fun of the idea of people having dial-up when they get their internet connection, and we now have internet connection through our wireless service as well as through our cable. Vested interest might lead to a focus on maintaining budgets over a focus on providing a quality education and instruction. For example, the Board of Education here in Ellington has been quite happy with the fact that you get a good quality education even though they don't spend top dollar on providing a variety of different types of classes that are available in some of the other schools, that because they need to maintain a budget, that the best quality education that you could get may not be there due to the lack of funds that are available. We have a vested interest in maintaining the budget versus trying to expand the budget, increase the taxes so that more classes can be added here. In recent time, that has changed somewhat, and that might be just because there's a change also on the school board, that we're adding more AP classes and a variety of different electives, but that's not always been the case. Now, what I'd like you to do is try to use this graphic organizer. Obviously, you can't take it from here, but you can kind of copy it onto a sheet of paper. Use a graphic organizer to explain how different factors lead to social change and are affected by changing values. So we come up with the name of a social institution, talk about the social change, and then what might be some government policies or new technology that would come along to be used with those. This is the wrap-up of the chapter. You've got sort of short answer questions, essay questions that you might think about answering here. What are the core American values outlined by Robin M. Williams and James M. Henslin? What new American values have emerged in recent years? Identify the two methods through which society enforces norms. Explain the differences between positive sanctions and negative sanctions by giving examples of each. What role do government policies play in enforcing cultural values and social norms? How are the civil rights movement and women's rights movement examples of social change? How has cultural diffusion changed eating habits in the United States? And for what reasons do people resist change? As a follow-up, this is a worksheet that we'll actually be doing in class at some point. And so these are the answers that would be filled in as we were to take our notes. But if you missed it, here it is. As we look at sources of social change, some examples of that, and then what the consequences might be. And again, here would be an example of this graphic organizer and how we might fill it out. So we look at the social institution. We've got Americans with Disabilities. We've got social change, access to places that able-bodied people had is now open to everybody. Government policies, for example, might be that all elevators And ramps must be in government buildings, or it's the law. New technology, we'd have automatic doors and wider hallways. And that wraps up this section of Chapter 3.